Hello, my name's Michael Conneely, and this video is all about the eclipse of the 30th of April 2022. And the key question, can you create balance and success amid the fraught energy that's around now for this eclipse? There's actually a pretty huge energy on the 30th of April. And that's because this eclipse is in the Aries Libra sign axis, where the nodes of the moon have just changed sign into that axis, and also because a number of planets are changing sign now, including dread Saturn. So this eclipse, sun and moon are at 16 degrees Aries. That's in the sidereal zodiac of Vedic astrology. It's 10 Taurus in the tropical western zodiac. Okay, what is an eclipse? An eclipse is to be likened for its effect in our life to that of an earthquake in the Earth's crust. Basically, the scene is that tension in an area of the Earth's crust grows and grows and grows between the different strata in the crust. And then, often at eclipse time, there will be an earthquake which liberates the tension. The crust can't take the tension anymore. There'll be an earthquake to get rid of the tension. And if it's under the sea, then it's a tsunami. So the big question at this stage is, can you identify the tension area in your life now, which this eclipse could bring an earthquake effect to? Not necessarily immediately on the day of the eclipse, but bring an earthquake effect to. And then the next question, having defined like a particular area of tension in our consciousness, in our life, the next big question is, what do you feel the ideal answer is to the tension area in your life now? What is the ideal answer? So as I said, note that this eclipse comes just after the nodes of the moon have changed sign to the Aries Libra axis. That happened on the 12th of April and will last for 18 months. And Rahu, the north node, is in Aries, me first energy, and Ketu, the south node, is in Libra, bringing a very dangerously critical energy to relationships. But with the higher spiritual cause that out of critical awareness of your relationship, you can bring a more spiritual dimension to it. And in fact, I've done quite a number of videos and blogs all about the nodes of the moon changing sign. They're listed on the April 22 page of my Star Wheel Astrology website. And two more video and blogs are to come. They are, what does it mean to have Ketu transiting across any planets you might have in Libra? What does it mean to have Rahu transiting across any planets you might happen to have in Aries? Watch this space for these two final, most important videos in the series. But let's get back to the detail of the April the 30th of eclipse, coming so soon as it does after the nodes have changed sign. As I said, Aries is about me first, and it's ruled by Mars. That's where Rahu is transiting. Libra is the sign of relating, and it's ruled by Venus. That's where Ketu, the south node, is transiting. Can you find the proper balance? Proper balance is actually the largest part of what this eclipse is all about, when experienced at its highest. You actually do have to realize, though, that in fact the prevailing energy of this eclipse is an energy that feels, at least at the outset until we can heal it, so fraught, so fearful, so unsettled, with key decisions sensed having to be made, and with an overriding call to find proper and true balance so that we live in our proper and true rhythm. Perhaps this can be achieved through a tweak in your life direction. Or perhaps this can only be achieved through a rather more major life path adjustment or change having to be made by you. So if you can handle this eclipse time right, if you can think and meditate deeply and powerfully at this eclipse time, then please know this: you can achieve pure balance, harmony and success. So you could strip away what actually needs to be pushed out of your life now. So in the rest of this video, with its accompanying blog post, I look at the 9 factors that I think are important to take into account with this particular eclipse. That's part 1 of my analysis. My part 2 video suggests a possible outline for a vision journey you could do to achieve this highest outcome. And in part 3, I list in the blog post the life area that this eclipse will strike. In other words, the house in your birth chart counted from your ascendant, but also from your natal moon. When it comes to eclipses, you need to count houses both from ascendant, or lagna as it's called, and moon for assessing the effect of an eclipse in your life area. What life area will be particularly affected in your case. So I'm not doing a video about that, but it's all listed at the end of the blog. Okay, so let's start part 1 by looking at the 9 factors that reveal the energy of this eclipse and how to work with it for the best, for your best. So the first is a potentially favourable factor. The eclipse is in Bharani Nakshatra, and basically at its highest, Bharani Nakshatra, which is ruled by Venus, is about joy, prosperity and personal growth. If you can take the right steps now, if you can deal with fear properly now, Bharani is a fierce creative energy of big transformation. And in fact, this eclipse is in the first pada of Bharani, which is the 5th Navamsha of Aries. And the 5th Navamsha of Aries is Leo in nature. And so Leo is a 5th house energy of creativity and higher ideas. Go for those now. But the second factor to take into account is the Saturn barrier. Saturn actually changes sign from Vedic Capricorn to Aquarius the day before this eclipse. And this makes a fated energy demand on you, on me. Saturn has had a long sojourn in Capricorn, and he's going to spend more time there. But just before he transits briefly into Aquarius, he has been insisting we dot the I's, cross the T's and tie up loose ends, finish off the detail. And this has caused us tension. We have to identify what has been left undone and tie up those ends. And the other barrier is actually Pluto. This is fascinating. The day before the eclipse, Pluto turned retrograde. So his velocity is virtually at station. And the slower a planet's velocity, the greater the power with which that planet grinds his energy into our life. And so Pluto is super strong. And his demands are usually about power issues and us achieving to connect to our buried power and coming into our proper power, and so being the ethical, loving, powerful hero. But also, Pluto demands that we access and heal our buried unconscious material now. So Pluto's demand is actually that we centre and stand still at this time and occupy our rightful power, bringing that to our work with this eclipse. Now the blog goes into some detail about the problems that Venus is in. There's a potentially wonderful Neptune-Jupiter conjunction at the very start of Vedic Pisces for this eclipse. And Jupiter is actually very, very closely conjunct Venus. But in the analysis of Vedic astrology, Venus is unfortunately trashing Jupiter, and we need to be aware of what Venus is doing. In Rashi Avashtas, it's called a situation of Venus starving Jupiter. And so, hear this, it can make each of us overly concerned about finding happiness, finding it through one particular thing, one particular agenda, one event, one area of life. And so this is Venus being greedy and tunneled vision and harming Jupiter expansiveness and guru energy. So at the time of this eclipse, if we fall into the negative Venus trap, we will prevent ourselves from actually seeing what destiny is giving us in this particular situation. And in fact, it is fated and destined. Remember, Saturn is actually square the nodal axis now. That's so important. And so I feel that for our spiritual healing and finding proper meaning within our tense present situation and within this eclipse, we need to achieve the vision and power to see where Venus might be giving us a greedy, wrong agenda and narrow vision, and that we actually have to rise into the larger Jupiterian dimension and find a solution to the tension we feel that is right for our body rhythms, right for our destiny line, and right for our line of life purpose. These are the things we need to develop a perception of at the time of this eclipse. These are the things we need to commit ourselves to now. We will find true satisfaction there. We will find bodily satisfaction there. We will find higher spiritual satisfaction there. There's also a problem with Mars. So Venus is the eclipse ruler to the extent that the eclipse is in Bharani Nakshatra. But Mars is the eclipse ruler to the extent that the eclipse is in the sign of Aries. And the problem is that Rashi Avashtas show that Mars and Saturn are fighting each other terribly at the time of this eclipse, causing growling frustration, anger or irritation to enter our consciousness. You know, if you look at the blog, you can read, for example, that Mars has a raw strength score in the eclipse chart of 359 strength points, but Saturn brings 555 negative points to Mars. And indeed, Mars fights back. When influenced by Mars, Saturn's score falls to -195. Don't underestimate the growling frustration and anger that the Saturn-Mars barrier can bring. It's one of the biggest and first impediments to relationship happiness and success. So the destination of our work with this eclipse energy must be to see these components and to achieve a new balance in our life. I feel that if you do the vision work, and I'll be doing a separate video on that, you'll reap well from this eclipse. But we will only reap well if we center, meditate and do vision work and take the steps to reap well from this eclipse. And crucially, we have to understand that the ultimate call of this eclipse is to find the pure balance. The ultimate call is that we each come into harmony and so into success. If we find the needed new balance in our life path. And indeed that will only occur if we sustain the needed new balance. And because Saturn is square the nodal axis, please hear this most important caveat. The needed new balance can only come accompanied by heavy responsibilities. Why? Because Saturn is square the nodal axis. However, point 7 in my blog says there is a helping hand. If you look at the Western chart for this eclipse, and the charts are shown on the April 2022 page on my Star Wheel Astrology website, you'll see that there's a talent triangle, a very special talent triangle. Mercury is trine Pluto, and each of these is sextile the apex stellium of the talent triangle. And so the apex planets are Neptune conjunct Jupiter conjunct Venus. So we've discussed that Venus can pose a risk to Jupiter, but basically Mercury trine Pluto is deep cognitive awareness and thought, indeed going into unconscious buried material, and the two of those are sextile. They activate Jupiter-Neptune in Pisces, which is wonderful vision potential, and of course the twist of the tail, the Jupiter-Venus relationship has to be handled perfectly, as I've explained. So read about the talent triangle. It's point 7 in the blog. Okay, a couple more points to understand this eclipse. Point 8, Uranus. Uranus is the X factor. Uranus is bringing in revolution, tension, even war. Uranus is in a 3-planet stellium with eclipse, sun and moon. Uranus is at 20 Aries, sun and moon eclipse are 16 Aries, and all three are in Bharani Nakshatra. Remember, when Uranus last transited Vedic Aries, it saw the rise of Adolf Hitler, the burning of the Reichstag, and his bringing in of World War II. But on our personal level, what Uranus presents, conjunct eclipse, sun and moon, is to make each of us now ask ourselves, what demand is being placed on me now that forces me to change some pattern in my life? What demand is being placed on me now that forces me to change some way of seeing things in my life? In other words, what Uranus-type revolution should I bring in now if I am to achieve my new perfect balance, which is the highest gift of this eclipse? What revolution must I bring in now? In what area of my life must I bring it? So, the final point I make in the blog, before I go on to part 2, vision work possible outline, and part 3, what house in your chart does this eclipse fall? The final point 9 is become the chosen one. If we can take the period, April the 29th to May the 1st especially, quietly, and put aside some time to meditate and do vision work on the nature of this eclipse, we have it within us to develop a picture of our personal needed new balance. And the picture includes us at the centre being the hero of that needed new balance, becoming the chosen one. I say that because this eclipse is in Bharani Nakshatra, and I do believe that if we actually can handle this eclipse in the way I've tried to outline, we will have success and joy and abundance. Out of our new awareness that this eclipse can bring, can come creative focus, confidence and prosperity based on personal growth. So get in touch with me for a reading. Go to my Star Wheel Astrology buy page and see that my wife Maggie Pashley does many healing modalities worldwide online. Her website's www.maggiepashley.com. So I hope this outline has been helpful. Go to the part 2 video, which is the vision work possible outline, and above all, go to the blog post. See what houses in your chart are affected, and see the charts which are shown on my April 2022 page on my Star Wheel Astrology website. So I look forward to working with you. Thank you.